Picture a temple toy spinning on steam in the first century, then jump to ships outracing navies and turbines lighting your room tonight. Same force, new tricks. In this story, we start tiny, valves, rings, and boilers barely bigger than kettles, then scale to locomotives, power plants, and the grid itself. Expect surprises, breakthroughs, and a few stunts. Buckle up, the steam engine's evolution is louder, stranger, and smarter than you think. The first spark wasn't a factory, it was a curiosity. In the first century, Heron of Alexandria sketched and demonstrated the aeolipole, a hollow sphere that spun when steam jetted from its bent nozzles. It didn't pump a mine or drive a mill, but it proved a radical point. Heat could be turned into motion. That seed waited centuries for the right problems to make it useful. The pressure cooked the idea. In the late 1600s, French-born Denis Papin built a steam digester, basically a pressure cooker, and added a safety valve, tiny hardware that made steam controllable instead of terrifying. Papin also imagined using a piston and cylinder so a vacuum could pull, not just push. He didn't industrialize it, but he gave later builders the blueprint. From concept to commerce came Thomas Savery, a Devon military engineer with a salesman's pen. In 1698, he patented a fire engine that raised water by alternating steam pressure and vacuum, then pitched it in the miner's friend. Estates were impressed, minds were interested, if cautious. Practicality arrived with Thomas Newcomen, an ironmonger preacher who, by 1712, built the atmospheric engine miners could actually run. It reliably hauled water from deep shafts, feeding the coal and iron surge that the next improvements would supercharge. We begin with a proof of motion. Heron's aeolipile in the first century showed that steam jets could spin a sphere. It wasn't a machine of industry, but it established the principle that heated water could be harnessed to produce rotational force, a seed that would later flower. In the late 1600s, Denis Papin turned fear into control. His steam digester raised pressure safely thanks to a spring-loaded safety valve that bled off danger before boilers burst. More importantly, Papin imagined a piston and cylinder where steam would be condensed to create a vacuum, letting atmospheric pressure do work. He mapped out the anatomy even if he lacked the workshop to scale it. Thomas Savery commercialized a simpler pistonless idea at the turn of the 18th century. His fire engine alternated between steam pressure to push water upward and condensation to suck it in again. It could lift water from shallow depths and proved that continuous pumping with fire and water was possible, though its efficiency and lift limits kept it from deep mines. Thomas Newcomen's 1712 atmospheric engine cracked the mine problem. He injected steam into a cylinder, then cooled it with a water spray. The condensing steam created a vacuum, atmospheric pressure shoved the piston down. A great timber beam translated that stroke into the steady rise of pump rods. It was reliable, rugged, and coal-hungry, but it saved mines and unlocked deeper seams. James Watt's 1760s to 1880s upgrades turned hunger into thrift and motion into versatility. His separate condenser kept the cylinder hot while condensing happened elsewhere, slashing fuel use. Sun and planet gearing delivered smooth rotary motion without a crank. Double-acting cylinders powered both strokes. Parallel motion linkages guided rods cleanly, and the centrifugal governor steadied speed. Workshops and mills suddenly had a controllable stationary prime mover. High pressure shrank the hardware. Richard Trevithick and Oliver Evans pushed stronger boilers, so steam entered cylinders above atmospheric pressure. More pressure meant smaller, punchier engines. Suddenly, you could bolt power onto wheels. Trevithick's early locomotive demonstrated rail traction, flanged wheels on iron rails, pistons driving cranks, and steam exhausts chuffing up the chimney to pull a draft through the fire. On water, Robert Fulton proved commerce.
the steamboat married a compact engine to a hull and paddle wheel, beating wind and tide on schedule. River systems turned into predictable highways. Upstream became practical. Towns grew around timetables rather than weather. Railways scaled from curiosity to backbone. Stockton-Darlington opened public steam haulage. Soon after, trials like Rainhill rewarded locomotives that balanced boiler surface, strong frames, and efficient valve gear. Stephenson's pattern, firebox, multi-tube boiler, cylinders near the front driving coupled wheels, became the template for a century of speed and freight. Efficiency sharpened in Cornwall and beyond. Engineers cut steam admission early and let the working fluid expand, doing more with each charge. Compound engines used 2 or more cylinders at different pressures to share work and reduce losses. Indicator diagrams, pressure plotted against piston travel, turned guesswork into data, tuning engines like instruments. Boilers evolved from barrels to skeletons of tubes. The water tube design routed water through small diameter tubes bathed in hot gas, allowing higher pressures, quicker steaming, and safer operation. Superheaters dried and heated steam further, reducing condensation in cylinders or turbine stages, and improving thermal efficiency. Then came the biggest leap in smoothness, the steam turbine. Instead of slamming pistons, turbines guided high-speed steam through blades, extracting energy in a continuous flow. De Laval's impulse wheel chased velocity. Parsons' reaction stages split the drop into many gentle bites. Turbines spun fast, compact, and steady, perfect for electric generators and fast ships. Public spectacle sealed adoption. A turbine-driven craft outpaced the day's proud warships, proving that smoother flow could outrun reciprocating muscle. Navies and liners embraced turbines. Power stations followed, coupling high RPM shafts to alternators and electrifying cities at scale. By the early 20th century, steam systems became thermodynamic suites. Economizers preheated feed water with flue gas, reheaters dried steam between turbine stages, condensers pulled deep vacuums to recover exhaust steam as water and to stretch the turbine's pressure drop. Every heat exchanger and staging choice nudged the Rankine cycle closer to its limits.
Not all fields stayed steam. On rail, diesel-electric traction offered quicker starts, less maintenance, and simpler crews. Steam locomotives yielded. But at utility scale, turbines fed by boilers dominated. Whether the heat came from coal grates, oil burners, or later nuclear reactors, the conversion path, boil, expand, condense, repeat, remained astonishingly resilient. Materials science pushed the ceiling higher. Chromium moly steels, nickel-based alloys, and precision welding enabled ever hotter, ever higher pressure operation. As steam temperatures climbed and pressures reached the supercritical region, plants harvested more kilowatt-hours from the same fuel. Controls and instrumentation tightened, making enormous machines behave with the finesse of watchworks. By century's end, the development arc traced a clean line, from a spinning toy and thirsty pumps to disciplined, measured thermodynamics driving grids and fleets. The core idea, use phase change to move energy, never changed. What changed were the components, safer valves, smarter valve gear, stronger drums and tubes, rotors instead of rods, data instead of hunches. This timeline sets the stage for modern steam's quiet reign and the challengers just over the horizon.
The biggest misconception is the most useful hook. James Watt didn't invent the steam engine, he made it worth using everywhere. By separating condensation from the cylinder and adding smooth rotary motion, he turned the coal-guzzling pump into factory muscle. A publicity stunt's Rewired enable strategy. In 1897, Charles Parsons sent his turbine boat, Turbinia, slicing through a Royal Fleet Review, simply outrunning everything. Overnight, reciprocating engines looked old. Turbines became the shipbuilder's default. Thrift, not brute force, transformed mining. In Cornwall, early cutoff and expansive working squeezed more work from each puff of steam. With indicator diagrams, engineers stopped guessing and started measuring, tuning valve gear like musicians tune pitch. A tiny part changed culture: the safety valve. From Papin onward, that spring and plug meant pressure could be managed. It nudged steam from fearsome to predictable and pushed workshops toward testing, inspection, and insurance, proto-industrial safety standards. The pivot from pistons to continuous flow was philosophical as much as mechanical. Turbines didn't pound, they guided steam. That smoothness unlocked high speeds, high power densities, and direct coupling to electric generators. Rail's heartbreak came later. Diesel-electric beat steam with faster starts, fewer hands, and cleaner depots. Steam retreated from tracks, but not from power stations, where its quiet authority only deepened.
After steam's retreat from rail, it doubled down where it always excelled: steady, industrial-scale power. Today, most large plants still run a Rankine cycle: boil water, expand through a turbine, condense, repeat. Whether the heat comes from pulverized coal, natural gas boilers, nuclear reactors, geothermal reservoirs, or mirrors concentrating sunlight. Different fuels, same choreography. A disciplined loop turning invisible vapor into grid-stable megawatts. The big gains now come from temperature, pressure, and materials. Ultra-supercritical units push steam past old limits using nickel-rich alloys, welded headers, and careful chemistry control to live at punishing conditions. Superheaters and reheaters keep the working fluid dry and lively. Multi-stage turbines sip energy across carefully profiled blades. Heat recovery steam generators reclaim exhaust from gas turbines in combined cycle plants, stacking efficiencies rather than chasing miracles. The modern plant also has a digital brain. Real-time sensors watch metal temperatures and creep, model predictive controls, trim valves with pianist finesse, and condition-based maintenance replaces calendars with evidence. The result is quieter, cleaner, more flexible steam that can ramp to shadow solar sunsets and ride through wind lulls. What could nudge steam aside? Supercritical CO2 Brayton cycles promise compact hardware and high efficiency. Long-duration storage and small modular reactors may reshape how and where we raise heat. But even in those futures, a turbine wheel spinning behind the lights feels inevitable. Steam's likely destiny isn't disappearance, but partnership, sharing the grid with faster, smaller cycles while anchoring reliability when the weather or the market gets weird.
Trace the line with me. A temple curiosity that spun on puffing jets becomes a mind-saver, then a factory heartbeat, then a turbine so smooth that outran a navy, and today it's the quiet backbone behind the glow of your screen. The steam engine didn't just power machines, it rewired time itself, turning seasons and tides into schedules and timetables. Each small fix, valves, condensers, boilers, blades, stacked into a system that still converts heat to motion more reliably than almost anything we've built. And yet the story isn't over. Materials creep higher, sensors get smarter, hybrid plants braid steam with gas turbines, solar heat, and nuclear cores.
New contenders, supercritical CO2 cycles, advanced storage, and modular reactors knock at the door promising tighter, faster loops. So here's the question I'll leave with you. Will steam remain the grid's steady heartbeat, or will these nimble newcomers take the lead? What future do you see for the engine that taught the world to hurry? Which chapter grabbed you? The Aeoli Pile's spark, Watt's workshop, Cornwall's thrift, or the turbine age? Tell me why below, and drop the next evolution you want. Diesel versus steam on rail, the gas turbine's rise, or the SCO2 challenge? If this kind of story works for you, you'll probably enjoy the deep dive playlist on engines and energy. Start with the locomotives episode or jump to turbines and the modern grid. And if you know a friend who loves engineering lore, pass this along. It's more fun with company. I'll see you in the next chapter. Bring your best questions and sharp corrections.